Nick Schaaf, live in Emmett, Nebraska. Have all my life. I have a Peterbilt and I haul liquid fertilizer for the fertilizer downtown here.
This is just like a little country cluster. I mean, we have horses in town, we have cows in town, we have chickens in town.
We came home from vacation, unpacked everything, and I went over to mow the neighbor's yard, went to the bathroom and walked behind my truck and thought I was going to sit down and have a cigarette. Never made it.
And he was standing there leaning against the fan. And so I pulled the car right up, and then we went over to Atkinson Hospital. I called him on the way and told him we were coming.
I didn't think nothing wrong with me. That death thing never crossed my mind. Just short of breath. Figured that just get me calmed down and that'd be it. I'd go home.
It wasn't your typical clinical picture of stroke either, with specific right-sided or left-sided weakness or slurred speech or absence of speech. He just had a clinical picture that was concerning. After the CT scan, and we knew that he had an acute hemorrhagic stroke, we knew that we had to get him to a facility that could care for him.
We all said our goodbyes to Nick as he was getting on the helicopter, and my mom and my brother Spencer and I were gonna drive up to Omaha.
Then she called me and told me that he was getting life flighted to get my bag packed and they'd be by in a couple minutes. So I stopped and picked me up and we took off for Omaha.
I didn't know if I'd ever talk to him again. It was very scary. And I was so glad my kids were there with me.
Only allowed 2 people in the room, so I let my sister, because she's a nurse, she knows a lot more about that than me, and my mom go in and kind of get the status.
And Dr. Thrall talked to his team of surgeons, and they decided that clipping the aneurysm would be the best outcome for him.
Yeah, I'm a little slower. I don't just jump and run anymore. But yeah, all in all, it's good.
It was kind of worrying because his eye was all swollen and he was pretty much unconscious. There's a bunch of staples and a big cut in his head.
And seeing all those tubes and needles in them.
Well, more or less told me the next weekend when I came back to bring my razor and shave the rest of his head.
I consider his outcome miraculous because he's on blood thinners. And if that aneurysm would have kept bleeding, obviously he wouldn't have survived.
I feel like anytime that you have the symptoms of a stroke, never ignore it. And even if it's not the classic signs, if it's anything abnormal at all, it should always be checked out because it could always be something way more than what you think it is.
I don't think God was ready for me up there yet. I think he kicked me down and said, you got work to do yet. Don't smoke no more, and I always prayed to quit smoking. I guess he done his deal.
Well, hopefully in a few years when we retire, we'll be able to travel and do things that we couldn't have done before.
I want to go fishing more and work on the truck and stuff like that.
Spend more time with him and doing stuff with him.
Now we just try and keep Nick taking his medicines like he's supposed to, make sure his blood pressure's controlled. We know that he's at higher risk for other events, and if we keep him healthy in those ways, then we know his long-term survival is much better.
I think I had excellent care everywhere. I mean, it just, yeah. Everybody seemed to know exactly what to do and when to do it, and credit that to everybody.